All right. Hey, guys. I'm going to kind of jump in quickly here because I want to go over some announcements and then I want to still get time to do the lesson and for you guys to have some time to do your assignment. And actually, that kind of leads into one announcement right off the bat is that so far, some of the lessons have been shorter, I would say. And so I think most of you have been able to finish in class. And I want to say that that might not be the case with every assignment. And that's normal because technically we're supposed to have an assignment and homework. But because I know social studies, just with our assignments, some of them tend to run long and kids don't always finish. I don't assign an extra homework assignment. Instead, I just always assign the assignment. And then I have you guys know that if you don't get it done, then you need to do it for homework. So today's one might actually be an assignment that you won't get done in class and you may have to finish it for homework. It's a little bit longer. So, but if you finish it in class, that's great. You might, but I just want you to keep that in mind. Okay. The other announcement I just wanted to say is my office hours are during 2 to 3 p.m. each weekday, right? That's the time you can get on my Zoom call and get help. I want to point that out because I've had some people getting on the Zoom call at other times of the day, like particularly when I'm teaching kids at school. I've had remote kids hop on because I can see whether they're getting on or not, but I can't get on and be a part of that Zoom call because I'm teaching, right? So just know that 2 to 3 p.m. is the time for that. So if you want to get that help, you got to get on at between 2 and 3 p.m. on a weekday. And I also just want to encourage more people to use that option. I've only had one person so far get on and get help. And I can see that other kids, I think, are struggling and could benefit from being on the office hours. So I encourage it. Okay, the next thing is not, I guess, so much an announcement, but I did want to just touch on some stuff from yesterday's assignment. This is really annoying. Why is that? Okay. So stop it. Okay. So I noticed that some of your guys' answers kind of showed me that in some of these, there were like a couple answers that could be right. Okay. That doesn't mean any answer was right. But I had an answer I thought was right for all of them, like one. But then, like I said, I saw that, oh, that kind of works too. So like, I'll just use number one as an example. Number one was the one with Diane, who wanted a park in her neighborhood. And so she went to a city council meeting and she made a really good argument saying why they should have the park, right? And she was successful. The answer I was looking for was inquiry, okay? Because the inquiry skills means skills in terms of making an argument, right? Being persuasive. It also refers to evaluating sources, but we'll talk about that more later. But in this case, I felt like that was the core skill she used. She made a persuasive argument and she got the park, right? So she used inquiry skills. Some of you put civics, and I thought, that works too, because civics is about government, right? And so a city council meeting is the city's government. And so I can see why you would say that civics was important there because she knew to go to the city council meeting and to make the case to them, and that's how she could get something done. So I think that works too. That doesn't mean that any answer was correct, right? Because like economics doesn't really connect in this case. It's not really about businesses or money. So yeah, anyway, I just want to kind of point that out that I did notice there were a couple answers for some of these that could work. I did also want to just real quick go over this jury duty one because I wasn't thinking at the time that, oh yeah, you guys didn't get to your Constitution unit last year. And so you might not have been aware of kind of how this works. But if you're called on jury duty, that means you're going to a court case, right? And so this court case has a judge who is overseeing it. And that means a person has committed a crime or is accused of committing a crime. And then you as a citizen are in a jury and you have to decide whether they're guilty or not. That is part of what we call the judicial branch, okay, which is the part of our government that handles court cases, right? And so last year, my students coming in would have already covered that in 7th grade. So I wasn't thinking about the fact that you may not know that being on a jury is kind of, it's doing a civic duty, right? It's both being a part of what the government's doing, because the government, the judicial branch is part of the government and they're running that court case. But also it's about kind of your right, not your rights, but your duty as a citizen to be a juror. So anyway, I thought I'd just touch on that real quick too. And yeah, I think that was all I was going to touch on with those particular questions. Sorry. The other thing I did just want to sort of stress before I moved on was hopefully you did find some reasons in there that you found convincing why social studies can be important for your life. Okay. I tried to put on some that were like more just directly practical, that just helping you, right? Like I think a lot of things about economics is going to be directly helpful to you. Okay. Not only just running a business, which is the example I gave in the assignment, but also just understanding economics makes you a smarter customer. Okay. Helps you understand what sometimes companies are doing, or how to get the best deal, or how to be a smart shopper. It also, learning more about it can help you learn how to invest your money smartly. So those are like some of the practical ones, but also some of those was also just about you being like a good, helpful citizen, right? Because we live in a democracy, which means that everybody gets a chance to vote, right? And decide who our representatives are, who our president is. And so because of that, we need everybody in this country to be a thoughtful, well-informed citizen to make that work best. And learning these social studies topics is what helps you, right? Knowing your history helps you to put people in office who aren't going to make the same mistakes we've made in the past, right? Knowing civics and how our government works is going to help you to be able to vote more effectively and hold your government accountable for what they're doing. And I could go on, so on and so forth. So that's just kind of the last thing too, is that I'm hoping that each of you guys can continue to grow into the type of people that by the time you're 18, you're able to, read the newspaper and understand the news, right? Talk to people, your friends and your neighbors thoughtfully about the issues, and then ultimately go to the voting booth and be an informed voter. Okay. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox about that, but I just think if you can find value in what we're doing, you're going to care more and you'll work harder. And I think you'll get more out of the experience. All right, let's move on because today's lesson is actually, it's an inquiry skill, which inquiry is, again, not only argumentation, but it is also evaluating sources, right? What is a good source for information? So I'm going to start just by making a statement that I don't think will be shocking to any of you, but I'm going to say it. And that is, not everything on the internet is true. Okay? I think you guys probably know that. But this is one of the reasons why understanding how to find good sources is so important, is that we get so much of our information from the internet. And yes, a lot of it is accurate, but a good chunk of it is not, right? And so you have to be able to figure out who are good sources and who are some bad ones, right? And so I just thought I'd give one example of that. And that is, this spring, there was a situation called the Great 5G Coronavirus Conspiracy. And this was actually where people started believing and spreading that 5G cell towers were spreading the coronavirus, okay? Some people were saying that they just hurt your health and your immunity, and that makes you more vulnerable to the coronavirus. And other people were just straight up arguing, these towers can give you coronavirus, can pass it on to you, which was like totally untrue. But the problem was that people would hear it from one person and they wouldn't think about whether that person was a good source. So then they'd spread it to somebody else. And then that person didn't think about whether you were a good source, And so literally some people were attacking 5G cell towers. They were trying to burn them down, destroy them. Like, it was wild, right? On totally false information. In fact, actually, a number of celebrities were involved in spreading this. Not on purpose, but they were just misinformed, right? Like Wiz Khalifa, famous rapper, I think he did a Facebook video and was talking about it, right? And so his fans are listening to it, and then they believe him, and they're spreading it to other people. John Cusack, a famous actor, same thing. And his was on Twitter, I believe. So if you take the time to think about your sources, a lot of those issues could be cut out before, we get to the point where people are trying to burn down cell towers. So I'm going to address ACDC skills here. And these ACDC skills are the things that we're going to use to figure out whether a source is a good source of information or not. And you're going to use these today and tomorrow. More directly, we're going to like pinpoint some of the specifics tomorrow, but these are very much going to come in handy today too, if you kind of take into account what we're talking about. So I'm going to focus especially on A and the last C. So author, right? So first of all, when you get information from somebody, you need to think about, who am I getting this from? And are they a trustworthy source, right? And there's lots of things to think about. So let's just keep it simple to start and just say, are they an expert, right? Because if they're not an expert, that might not be the best source of information to get, this stuff from. Or maybe they're citing and quoting somebody who is an expert. Then, I think that works too. But, if you see Wiz Khalifa on Facebook video, or you're looking at John Cusack's Twitter account, they're not an expert, right? And again, if they're not quoting an expert or citing them, then at least it doesn't mean that it's 100% false, but you probably want to pause and think about whether or not you want to just immediately believe that, right? Context has to do with, I'm kind of losing my voice. I'm not sick, I've been talking a lot. Context is more about when, like usually it's like with a written source or a painting, it's when it was created. We'll talk more about that later. That's not as essential to what I want to go over right now. And then determine usefulness really is the last step. And that's more like, now that I've thought these things through, what's my decision? Am I going to use this source or not? But let's look at corroborate real quick. Corroborate is just a fancy word that means, did other sources agree with them, right? It's a way to check on that person. So again, let's say you're looking at John Cusack's Twitter account and you're hearing about this conspiracy. Maybe pause and say, I'm going to try to corroborate what he's saying first. I'm going to look at some other sources and see what they're saying, right? And specifically, if you choose good sources, right? If you're looking for like doctors or scientists, you would have seen pretty quickly like, oh, shoot, they're saying this is totally false. I better put down my can of gasoline and my matches and just stay inside today because this is not actually true, right? So corroboration is another helpful tool. So really, to start, really especially author, think about who's saying it and are they somebody who can be trusted, and corroborate. Maybe check with some other people and compare, especially with the best sources. Is what they're saying line up with some of the best sources you can look for? So that's ACDC. Now let's look at the assignment. This is called the Mystery of the Broken Gong assignment. And this would be, this is probably confusing why I'm talking about a gong for those who are at home. This wouldn't be confusing for you guys if you're at school, because you would know that I have a gong in my room, okay? That's what a gong is if you weren't aware. And so this is a fictional scenario that's going to get us thinking about how to evaluate sources, because this skill is not just important for the internet. This is important for any time you get information, okay? So anyway, I'll just read the event. Recently, a student broke Mr. Peterson's gong. Mr. Peterson was greeting students at the door when he heard a crashing noise and the ring of his beloved gong. When he looked in the room, he saw two students, Jordan and Lanaya, near the desk and the broken gong on the ground. Mr. Peterson wants to know who broke it so that they can pay for a replacement. Since he didn't see what happened, he has to rely on witness statements. He's collected statements from different sources, but is having trouble figuring out who did it. The stories are very different, right? So he's getting very different stories from some of these people. So before I release you to do this, let's take a minute just to think together. What are some things we want to be looking for in this assignment for maybe why some people wouldn't be good sources, and also why somebody might be a good source? So the kinds of people he's getting information from are Jordan and Lanaya, who are involved in the situation. He's getting it from some of the friends of Jordan and Lanaya. He's getting it from a bystander. So that means somebody in the class who wasn't really friends with them, but he was there and he saw it. And from Sheila, Jordan's mom, so one of the parents of the kids involved, okay? So the first thing I want us to just stop and do is to brainstorm what are all the possible reasons why somebody might not be giving the correct information, whether they're lying or not, just like, because clearly some of these are incorrect because they contradict each other, so they can't all be correct. So I don't have one of my hats because I'm at school, but I'll balance this tire foam on my head in a second, which is my sign for you to pause it and to do this. But I should say first, what you should be doing is you guys should all have notebooks in your basket if you're at school. If you're at home, hopefully you have a notebook or a piece of paper handy. And when I put this, balance this tire foam on my head and your teacher pauses it, or in your case at home, when you pause it, I want you to jot down again all of the possible reasons why some of these people might not be giving correct information, right? And again, thinking about who's involved, the people involved in the situation, their friends, their parents, just what are all the possible reasons, okay? So jot that down in your notebook, and I'm going to put this on my head and go ahead and pause the video to do that. Okay. I'm going to assume that you guys have jotted this stuff down now. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you some of the ideas I came up with. Because I think, shoot, sorry, I did the wrong one there. Because I think that, oh, don't tell me this is, sorry, this is being mean to me. Just a second. Okay, let me try this again. Cool. All right, I can pull it up. All right. These are the biggest ones that I came up with, right? One of the students involved, right? So Jordan or Lanai, or maybe even both of them, they could be lying to stay out of trouble, right? Doesn't mean for sure they are, but they could be. A friend could be lying to protect their friend who was involved, right? So they could be lying and try to make it seem like their friend didn't do it. A student might blame another one of the students just because they're mad at them for other reasons, okay? You might have a parent who isn't lying, but maybe just can't bring themselves to believe that their kid could have done it, right? Again, this doesn't mean for sure that these are, that this is what's happening for people involved, but these are things you should be thinking about and considering whether this is an issue going on there, okay? And then another thing I want us to do real quick. So I'm going to do one more pause for you guys to jot in your notebooks. So this is something we're going to do a lot of lessons where I'm going to pause and I want you to jot something. So just it'll be a rhythm to get used to. The other one I want you to think about is what kind of a source is going to be probably the most likely to be trustworthy in this situation. Okay. So when I just put this on my head, go ahead and pause the video and jot that down. What kind of a person is going to be most likely to be a trustworthy source? Okay, go ahead and pause it. Okay. So you guys jotted that down. And again, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just show you what I think. And I think your best source is going to be a bystander, right? Because a bystander is somebody who was there, saw the event, but also doesn't necessarily have an involvement. They weren't directly involved. They weren't friends with somebody involved. So I just want you guys to kind of keep those things in mind as you do this assignment. Be looking for the sources to trust, not trust, and then it's mystery. It's, you know, you're a detective here. You're going to have to put everything together and try to figure out, if I had to decide right now who did it, boom, who do I think? Okay? So do that assignment now for the rest of work time, and if you don't finish, go ahead and do that for homework. All right, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Have a good one.